Hakeem Olufemi Gbajabiamila. God bless you all.
Some tertiary institutions have shown willingness to absorb the affected students.
House urged federal government to direct tertiary institutions in Nigeria to absorb returnee students from Sudan.
NEMA is now better positioned to deliver on its mandate.
And Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila says no parliament can perform optimally without support institutions. Hello and a warm welcome to yet another fresh package of House Tickets as we take you through recent events and deliberations in the House of Representatives, Federal Republic of Nigeria. My name is Dihelia Mamza. It's good to be with you again. The House, amongst other things last week, considered and passed several bills, motions as well as matters of urgent public importance. One of such motions was on the urgent need to investigate the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, over the utilization of ecological funds. It also called for the investigation of the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Trade and Investment for illegal virement and illegal utilization of funds meant for Zonal Intervention Projects in the Appropriation Act 2022. Other engagements of the Speaker, both within and outside the National Assembly, complete our package for this week. Let's begin the program after this short break. Stay tuned.
The entire purpose of the legislative agenda is to direct our legislative resources and efforts in a coordinated effort to ensure the well-being of the individual in a life of safety and freedom. That is a high ambition, but it's well worth the effort. We have passed landmark legislation to fix our oil and gas industry, reform the police, and reorganize the corporate administration system in our country. We have considered and passed meaningful legislation that impacts all areas of our national life.
We'll start with plenary sitting from the Green Chamber, reviewing bills and motions amongst other legislative interventions of the House in the last 1 week. The details are presented from our studio.
Wednesday, the 24th of May 2023 saw the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the National Institute for Legislative Studies Act No. 13, 2011 to, among other things, expand the mandate of the Institute to conduct induction and fresher courses for newly elected members of the National and State Houses of Assembly, promotion examination for staff of the National Assembly and National Assembly Service Commission, institutionalized legislative mentorship to strengthen democratic governance, and for related matters. It was sponsored by Representative Jimo Olajide and Representative Henry Nwauba.
I stand to move that a bill for an act to amend the National Institute for Legislative Studies Act number 13, 2011 to, among other things, expand the mandate of institute to conduct induction, refresher courses for newly elected members of the National State Houses of Assembly, promotion, examination for staff of the National Assembly and National Assembly Service Commission, institutionalized legislative mentorship to strengthen democratic governance, and for related matters. I so move, sir, Mr. Speaker.
If promotion exam...
The bill generated debate.
What this bill seeks to do is to take over the statutory functions of the National Assembly Service Commission. The National Assembly Service Commission is statutorily vested with the powers to conduct examination for the purpose of promotion and discipline of staffs of the National Assembly. What this bill seeks to do is to take over this power and then donate it to the National Institute for Legislative Studies. The National Institute for Legislative Studies is statutorily mandated to conduct training of legislative staff and legislators for the purpose of broadening their horizon and expose them to the nitty-gritty of legislation. That is their primary duty.
My own opinion is you need to check with Honorable Mongono about the statutory function of National Assembly Service Commission. If promotion exam is part of their mandate, you need to remove this. You need to remove this. It's very important. We cannot have two people having two mandates. If that is part of their mandate, we need to remove this, possibly at public hearing.
There's a very huge difference between the function of NILS and the function of the National Service Commission. And I want to call your memory and my colleagues in leadership, when we are about to have change of leadership on the way and manner things were done. You recall, the head of service came to the committee, came to leadership meeting at the Senate, and demanded us and told us that the function of the National Assembly Service Commission is just like that of the civil service, and they have the entirety of the responsibility to discipline, to promote, and to train their staffs. It is under their own purview. So what he seeks to do is in total aberration of what the law stipulates.
Those against me say
The
nay.
bill was voted on,
The ayes have it.
passed and referred to the Committee of the Whole.
The bill referred to the Committee of the Whole.
On health matters, the House took the second reading of a bill for an act to amend the Medical Residency Training Act and for related matters. The bill was sponsored by Representative Femi Gbajabiamila, Representative Tanko Yusuf Sununu, and Representative Samuel Babatunde Adejare. The general principles of the bill were presented by Representative Abubakar Hassan Fulata.
I move that a bill for an act to amend the Medical Residency Training Act for related matters, House Bill 2205, be read the second time. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
The bill scales second reading and has been referred to the House Committee on Health Care Services.
April 15, 2023, crisis broke out in Sudan.
Moving on to motions, a matter of urgent public importance brought forth by the House centered on the need to absorb students returnee from Sudan in tertiary institutions across the country. The motion was moved by Representative Sada Soli Jibia.
That some tertiary institutions have shown willingness to absorb the affected students. However, the approval of the federal government will be required. It recalls that in the face of the Ukraine-Russia war, there was a similar intervention whereby Nigerian students who fled from those countries were absorbed into tertiary institutions in Nigeria to continue with their various educational programs through the window of higher education's transfer program. Also cognizant of the fact for the federal government to consider the quota system imposed on certain courses such as law and medicine, to waive them for the students concerned in order to enable them continue with their programs pending the resolution of the Sudan crisis.
The motion, which had two prayers, was adopted without a debate. It prayed the House to urge the federal government to direct all tertiary institutions in Nigeria to accept the students affected by the Sudan crisis to continue with their various educational programs and mandate the Committee on Tertiary Education to ensure compliance and report back to the House within 1 week for further legislative action.
Those against me say nay. Ayes have it.
I move that this House note.
Still on matters of urgent public importance, Representative Jimo Olajide moved a motion on the urgent need to investigate the utilization of the ecological fund received by the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA.
Over the years, NEMA has been receiving special intervention funds amounting to billions of naira for not only mitigating flood and other disasters, but also to help cushion the effects of food shortages as a result of natural disaster across this country, Nigeria. Worried that despite receiving huge intervention funds, the National Emergency Agency, NEMA, not much progress has been seen, and the agency has failed to account for the monies received so far. Cognizant of the need to ensure that funds released to mitigate natural disaster and ensure citizen safety are adequately utilized and accounted for.
A lawmaker spoke against the motion.
This motion is imposed with a lot of personal interest, sir, because I'm pre-bill, yes, with certain discussions on the matter. Yes.
No. Okay.
I'm telling you, it's true.
No, we can't indict our members without
Sir,
any evidence.
the chairman is aware.
The-
We are discussing. Then still he came up with this matter on the floor.
Oh, okay. You didn't agree on the
Yes.
issues, and it still came.
Yes. And which time do we have in this regime? Only 1 week to the new administration. We should try even concentrate instead of raising ad hoc committees and other issues.
The motion was voted on and adopted. From the other paper, a motion titled Call on the Federal Road Safety Corps to mitigate the rising number of accidents along the Bauchi-Maiduguri Highway. It was sponsored by Representative Mansour Manusoro.
The House is worried about the rising number of motor accidents along the 3 federal highways, with resultant loss of lives and property. The House is also worried about the available statistics indicating that not fewer than 204 cases of road accidents were recorded on the 3 federal highways, involving 1,895 persons, out of which 237 deaths were recorded for the period of January 2021 to December 2022. The House is concerned about the inadequate presence of the Federal Road Safety Corps personnel along the affected federal highways and the lack of sufficient working facilities.
The House therefore resolved to urge the Federal Road Safety Corps to provide office accommodations and mobility and deploy additional personnel along the affected highways. Also urged the Federal Road Safety Corps to complete and equip their office edifice located at Zalanga along Bauchi-Maiduguri Highway. Further urged the Federal Road Safety Corps to provide safety signages on dangerous areas of the affected highways and work with the government of Bauchi State, transport unions, and other stakeholders to sensitize road users on obligations of making roads safe for users. The motion was voted on and adopted.
The ayes have it.
I rise to move a motion on the...
Still on the same day, Representative Jonathan Gaza-Gwefi moved a motion on the need to investigate the permanent secretary of the Ministry of Trade and Investment for unauthorized virement and illegal utilization of funds appropriated for zonal intervention projects in the Appropriation Act 2022.
Aware that the Federal Ministry of Finance has funded ZIP projects 100%, and all contractors with certificates of completion of such projects should have been paid according to certified work done. Worried that after the said contractor, who was fully awarded the contract for ZIP 20221459, successfully completed the job and was certified by the Ministry of Trade and Investment, the ministry refused to pay the contractor. Concerned that the said contractor borrowed funds and is facing a debt crisis, which is the story of a lot of our starting business enterprises that have been run out of business due to the insensitive attitude of some ministries and government agencies.
The House, in its resolutions, resolved to urge the federal government to mandate all ministries, departments, and agencies and parastatals of government to work on creating a system that ensures prompt payment of contractors after completing their job satisfactorily, and also facilitate a fair and transparent system of payment that is accessible to all, regardless of their size. Mandate the Committee on Trade and Investment to call on the Ministry of Trade and Investment to pay the contractor without further delay. Also mandate the committee to investigate the permanent secretary, who is the chief accounting officer of the Ministry of Trade and Investment, for the unauthorized utilization of funds appropriated for the zonal intervention projects.
I rise to move the motion on the...
Still on motion from the other paper, Representative Sam Onuigbo moved a motion on the need to implement carbon credit as part of the effort towards mitigating the impact of climate change in Nigeria.
Cognizant that legislators have responsibilities for ensuring that measures are taken to avert the devastating impacts of climate change. Hence, the House strongly advocates that Nigeria implements the law on carbon credit reward system as part of the several measures that can be taken towards reducing the impacts of climate change in the country. Also cognizant that the industrial sector contributes a high percentage of greenhouse gas emissions in Nigeria. Hence, the need to develop the capacity for implementing a carbon credit scheme to incentivize the decarbonization.
The House took several resolutions on the motion, one of which is to urge the federal government to direct the National Council on Climate Change in collaboration with the federal ministries responsible for industry, trade and investment, environment, budget and national planning to immediately implement the carbon credit scheme through the formulation of an action plan that is consistent with Section 20, subsection 1, 2 and 3 of Climate Change Act 2021. Meanwhile, 15 bills were read for the first time in the week under review, among which 8 were from the Senate. They include extension of capital aspect of the Appropriation Act 2022 and the 2022 Supplementary Budget Appropriation sponsored by Representative Alhassan Ado Doguwa, Agricultural Research Council of Nigeria Act Amendment Bill 2023 sponsored by Representative Abejide Leke Joseph, Nigerian College of Taxation and Fiscal Studies Establishment Bill 2023. For bills at third reading, over 26 bills were passed, some of which include a bill for an act to establish National Youth Service Corps Trust Fund for the purpose of providing a sustainable source of funds for the National Youth Service Corps, skill acquisition, training and empowerment of Corps members, training and retraining of the personnel of the National Youth Service Corps, development of camps and NYSC formations and facilities therein, and for related matters. A bill for an act to repeal the Nigerian Education Bank Act and enact the Students' Loan Access to Higher Education Act to provide easy access to higher education for indigent Nigerians through interest-free loans from the Nigerian Education Loan Fund, established in this act with a view to providing education for all Nigerians and for related matters. A bill for an act to repeal the Standards Organization of Nigeria Act, number 14 of 2015, and enact the Standard Organization of Nigerian Bill 2023 for the purpose of providing additional functions for the organization, creating new offenses and increasing penalties for offenses relating to standardization and for related matters.
If you just joined us, you're onto the legislative program House Tickets, coming your way on the NTA Parliament. In the first part of the program, we took a summary of plenary activities where some important legislations were made during the week under review. Up ahead, our last report on this package is the engagement of the Speaker, Femi Gbajabiamila, at the formal commissioning of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies permanent site by former President Muhammadu Buhari in Abuja. The report.
The permanent site of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, NILS, was formally commissioned on Thursday, 25th May 2023. The commissioning was performed by the former President Muhammadu Buhari. The edifice is located at plot C00307 Umaru Musa Yar'Adua Expressway, Airport Road, Abuja.
To commission the permanent site.
While speaking at the event, the former president described the permanent site of NILS as a magnificent complex that has the potential to significantly boost the capacity of the legislature in Nigeria and Africa at large.
Human capital is the essential lifeblood of a state and its public institutions, including legislature. The National Assembly and States House of Assembly stand to perform their constitutionally assigned mandate better when provided with all the required resources. The National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies permanent site, therefore, is a critical first step towards bolstering the capacity of the legislature to improve its lawmaking, oversight, and presentation functions.
The President, Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Speaker Femi Gbajabiamila, on his part, said that the relatively weaker institutional capacity of the legislature has hampered its effectiveness both at the national but most notably at the state level over the years. The Speaker noted that the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, NILS, modeled after the Congressional Research Service (CRS) of the United States, was established to fill this gap.
However, to perform this important, even if daunting function, the Institute requires state-of-the-art facility as well as the requisite professional manpower. Whereas NILS has achieved a lot with regard to the latter, today we make the former a reality.
The Speaker added that just as no nation attains sustainable economic productivity, growth, and nation building without first developing its human resources, no parliament can perform optimally without the support of well-resourced support institutions such as NILS.
Through its permanent site, therefore, NILS is now better positioned to deliver on its mandate of providing evidence-based research and technical assistance to the legislature to support its lawmaking, oversight, and representation functions.
In his remarks at the event, the Senate President Ahmed Lawan said that a new chapter in the Institute's history had begun. He noted that the edifice was geared towards positioning the Institute to deliver more effectively on its mandate and reach a wider audience.
I'm going to take the opportunity here today to urge you, sir, that this is not only for National Assembly members, NILS. No, it is for all Nigerians. And we're pleased to see people from the executive arm of government coming to take some lessons in NILS, because that will help. That will help in the understanding of what the National Assembly or Parliament does. Also for us in the 10th National Assembly, having suffered serious and massive casualties of not having or losing about 70% of our senators and members of the House, it means we have to work hard on capacity building for the rest of us who will be new in the National Assembly.
He urged members of the public as well as senators and members-elect to enroll into the Institute for them to have legislative understanding.
For taking our time to perform.
Speaking earlier, the Director General of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, NILS, Professor Abubakar O. Suleiman, said that the challenges of space and other requisite resources have severely hampered the operations and activities of the Institute. He noted that despite these challenges, the Institute has established itself as Africa's premier legislative capacity building institution, as attested by its highly valued services and outputs. Major highlight of the event was the commissioning of the building by former President Muhammadu Buhari.
That ends our package for this week. Let us do this again next time as we keep educating you on the role of the legislative arm of government of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Many thanks for being a part of the program as always. See you next time and God bless Nigeria.